Hi everyone, I'm En Hui, one of the hosts of Third Spacing, where we aim to develop nuanced conversations surrounding medicine in Singapore. In this episode, I speak to a very special guest, Faith, who was my batchmate in NUS Medicine. She is a PGY2 who now practices as a locum GP and blogs at Chasing Faith and Love. In this earnest episode, we honestly talked about her reasons for walking down this unconventional pathway, mental health as a junior doctor, and her thoughts on her future.
Hi everybody, I'm Faith. Thanks Anhui for having me on your podcast today. I'm currently 25, going to turn 26, class of 2021 in NUS. I'm a PGY2 now, currently working as a locum GP because I broke my bond. Some of you might know me from my blog, Chasing Faith and Love, where I write about my struggles in the system, how life is like as a medical student and doctor, and I dispense advice to prospective medical students, write about my changing thoughts and dreams over the years, and also roast the system quite a fair bit.
Why did you decide to write this blog?
I started this blog in 2016. I think my first few posts were just about how to get into med school because there was no one else writing about it. So I thought, yeah, why not? And surprisingly, the reception was good. So I continued writing about life as a medical student. And over the years, the platform grew. So I started writing monthly blog posts once I started housemanship, sharing very openly about my struggles. I wrote about how the hours were, the lifestyle, and some of my thoughts about the system and how things could be improved and what things would have benefited all of us. I also started writing another series called Chasing Dreams, which was more of a personal series where I wrote about my thoughts towards life, values, philosophies, and how I hope to influence other people to also lead a life that's less centered towards conventional definitions of success, and just trying to be a source of encouragement and solace for other people who are reading it. So I feel quite happy and fulfilled when I write my blog and people send me messages. They can really relate to my content. And it makes me feel like if I can even help just one person, it means that my blog has served its purpose.
As a house officer myself, a lot of the things that you say resonates with me as well. My personal favourite is the one on who is it that you want to be and become eventually. But it's rare for someone to be so honest with their thoughts, especially on such a public platform. Was writing a way for you to connect with other people, or was it a way for you to clarify your own thoughts? Why do you choose to write?
I write for myself as much as I write for my readers. I'm writing for myself so I can remember who I was at that point in time when I wrote the article, so that other people can also see how I was then and how I've changed over the years. Because I mean, we're all human, we're all just in flux. Maybe things happen in our life that make us change our direction, have a different outlook. That's why I write. And I mean, it's difficult being vulnerable on the internet sometimes because you wonder where the line is between sharing not enough and oversharing. If you say too much things, people can weaponize it and use it against you. But for me, I feel like maybe humans are like onions. You can peel back a certain number of layers. I'm willing to peel back more layers than most people. So I'm not too scared of exposing my emotions or wearing my heart on my sleeve because I feel like people will benefit from it more if at least just one person like me share their emotions, rather than everyone just keeping their feelings bottled up. Because a lot of us feel the same way. So I just want people to know that they're not alone in this.
I think there is a general trend for people to grumble, but when there is a session where people are encouraged to speak up, sometimes there is silence instead. And sometimes I do wish that there were more voices out there. I was also looking through your comment section. There was one that stood out to me. And this person basically said that you were going to regret your decision of breaking a bond. So what are some of the best receptions or connections that you had with your readers over the years?
So actually over the years, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, mainly over Instagram DM, sometimes through email, telling me that they related to my content or that they wanted to meet me in real life to find out what my thoughts were on certain issues. They wanted to hear my thought process, especially with regards to breaking the bond. Younger prospective medical students would reach out and say, can I meet you? I want to know what life as a medical student and doctor is like before I decide to make that massive commitment. So to me, I really appreciate it when people reach out and let me know how I can help them. Because if my blog exists just for me and for selfish reasons, it wouldn't be very fulfilling. To me, it's meaningful because I'm able to help these people make important decisions in their life, help them weigh the pros and cons. Recently, I made a new friend from the blog. So he reached out to me. He was asking whether he should consider breaking the bond or not. So I shared with him my experiences as a locum, and he was sharing about his experiences as a medical officer. He still decided to stay on for now because he heard about both sides of the story. That's what makes it important.
As someone who also did some unconventional things in life, I do feel like that there is a general sentiment where people do know what they want to do in life but are afraid of doing that. What do you think makes you willing to take that step and take that risk that other people weren't?
With the context of breaking bond, I should probably preface this with that it's not a small sum of money, so it comes with a huge amount of privilege in that my family was willing and able to help me pay it off. So it's not so much a matter of that I was the only one who dared to. I was the only one who was willing and able to. I'm pretty sure a lot more of my friends would happily break the bond if we magically gave them the amount of money required to leave. So in a way, I'm the first person in the batch to break the bond, to show them that actually there's a whole life that you can build outside there. Even if you don't do a residency, even if you never go for a single medical related exam ever again, there's so much of a life to be had outside of medicine. You really don't need to be defined by your career. You don't need to be limited by this very narrow Asian perception of success. You can live a life defined by your hobbies, your family, your values, and it can be as fruitful or even more fruitful than having a great career in medicine. I mean, at the end of your life, your career is not going to look back at you and say, thank you, I love you. It's your family that will tell you. So that's what I'm striving to achieve, and that's why I'm openly sharing about it.
Part of your blog is also about recognizing why is it that you want the things that you want. I'm thinking about it in like the context of people who have an inkling, right, that maybe this is not what I want, but are too afraid to find out what it is that their personal legend is. Can you share a bit about how that process was like for you? It was a change, right? You didn't always think this way.
I guess growing up in the Raffles system from primary school, secondary school, and Raffles JC too, it's taken years to slowly deprogram myself and think about what I actually want in life versus what society expects of someone from a generically good school and what our own parents expect of us. I always used to be someone who just chased grades because from secondary school I was like, I'm gunning for medicine. The rest of my friends are too, so that must be the right path. Both my parents are doctors, so they were a huge inspiration to me. I saw how they lived their lives. I saw how meaningful their jobs were in helping people. So to me, it gave me slightly rose-tinted glasses, thinking that this was the path I wanted to choose. If I could go back in time, I would still choose medicine all over again. There's definitely no regrets over that itself, but more of how a lot of us in the system led our lives very narrowly, just focusing on grades, even though there's actually so many other facets of a person that we should develop. A lot of people are hyper-focused on their career, getting into a residency, and maybe some of them feel bad about saying that maybe that's actually not what they want. They just want a chill life, spend time with their friends, their family, do sports. Because there are a lot of people with so many hobbies in medicine, and they're good at what they do. They have other things that they want to pursue, but they feel so limited and trapped by the system. It's not really their fault. It's a limitation of being bonded as well. Because before leaving the system, I was tired, feeling burnt out half the time. And suddenly when I left, I felt like I became a new person again. I had so much more energy, mental bandwidth, emotional bandwidth to go out and do things that normal people are doing. You can have brunch with your friends on the weekend, go out cycling with your family, travel. You don't have to fight for annual leave. You don't have to look at your roster and be like, oh, I'm on call on Saturday. You don't have that kind of lingering cloud over your head that I'm bonded. I'm stuck in this place for X number of years, whether I like it or not. I feel like the ability to have freedom and set an agenda for my own life was really empowering. I'm grateful that I was able to leave and make this kind of choice. I understand that it definitely is harder for people stuck inside the system to make the best of a very admittedly tough situation. I guess the most life-changing moment for me was my 3-month sabbatical when I went to New Zealand, Korea, and Australia for many weeks just to slow travel. There was no one telling me where to go or what to do. And I was just finally able to be with myself alone for the first time in pretty much my whole life. So it was a liberating experience. You're alone in a new country, surrounded by nature, left to your own thoughts, and able to see how the people over there live their lives. In New Zealand, people are life-oriented, not work-oriented. There's no such thing as work-life balance. They're just living life. Work is just one tiny part of their day. They knock off at 4 or 5. No one has any issues with it. No one's telling you should stay longer to prove that you're a better worker or more dedicated. I mean, there are a lot of people in medicine who are like, oh, I'm just going to stay until 6 or 7 to prove that I'm such a hard worker. I'll stay until 9 in the OT. Over there, they build their life first and then work came second. Here, it sometimes feels like your work comes first and then you try and fit your life in the remaining tiny pockets around it. So it's a very different outlook in general, and that made me realize that I wanted to have a more family-oriented, value-oriented life. It's okay for me to give up a career because that was not something I've ever wanted. For me, my new priorities would be having time in life to stop and smell the roses, just have time to spend with my family, future kids, loved ones, just work enough to pay the bills, but not too hard that it causes burnout, because work has to be sustainable. I mean, life is a marathon, not a sprint. If you burn yourself out from doing work too young, or you ruin your health over your work, it's not worth it. So it's all about finding the right trade-offs in life. For me, I decided that I want life, and I'll just work enough, but not too much.
Yeah. In my first few HO postings, leaving the hospital at 7 o'clock was considered early. And going to the hospital at 6 a.m. was the norm. I'm going through this whole period of reflection and deliberation. And I think it takes a lot of effort to shift that external locus of identity and respect to yourself. So for other people who are going through this journey, what kind of tips do you have?
I was planning to break my bond from pretty much the start of housemanship. So I did have many months to contemplate, will I regret this? What if I change my mind? What if I want to do a residency? What if I see all my friends being so successful that I wish I had stayed? But at the same time, there were so many reasons that made me realize that no amount of sacrifice would be worth it. So I guess when making major decisions like this, it's important to think about what your own values are, what you envision for your own future. If you're someone who's very career-oriented, then it's okay to stay in the system. But for me, as someone who definitely just wants to have a family and kids and a more laid-back pace of life, there was no question that being a GP, a freelancer, was always going to be a better option. There were a few detractors along the way, a few people who were like, are you sure this is what you want? They said it from a place of love, not from a place of you shouldn't break your bond because you're going to be screwed. So having those people provide their own points of views was also useful because it helped me consider, is there some truth in what they're saying? And then another thing is just not really caring about what other people think. Don't care about other people's judgment, because at the end of the day, they don't know all the circumstances that you're going through. They don't know what your reasons for breaking the bond. Don't let their words or projections affect you, because it's your own life. At the end of the day, they are not going to be there answering to you at the end of your life. It's you who has to answer to yourself. So just put yourself first when making these kind of decisions. Discuss it with your partner, your family, whoever's important to you, and filter the rest of the noise out.
I'm also quite curious to hear a bit about that time in HO-ship when it was really hard for you. What exactly was difficult for you?
For me, I feel starting off my entire working life and being thrown right into the deep end, where there was this strong culture of blame, of hierarchy, and severe burnout, especially among the residents. It was just a really jarring way to start working life and housemanship in general. I felt like I was staring down the barrel of a gun, wondering, is the rest of my career going to be like this? Is the next 12 months going to be like this? Because I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think I can survive that. But I mean, I'll be honest, the hours there were great. So it was definitely not the working hours that were bad. It was more of the culture. What really struck me was that people weren't valued at all as individuals. We were just another HO who needs to complete X number of tasks. So if you're treated like just a cog in the machine, you end up treating the patients also like just cogs in the machine, tasks to be ticked off. You don't really start seeing them as people anymore because you're just so burnt out and tired. Your seniors scold you because they're also getting scolded by their seniors. So it's just a very toxic trickle-down culture. People would just find reasons to throw other people under the bus instead of supporting them like a team should. After about 3-4 months into my posting, I was very close to quitting. I don't think it's sustainable or healthy. So not feeling supported made me really appreciate when I did go over to Khoo Teck Puat Gen Med instead to see if things would get better. And oh my gosh, it was like a breath of fresh air over there. The people there were also kind. You don't feel a sense of people talking down to you or trying to accuse you for not ordering some medicine. There wasn't that culture of blame. Everyone was able to communicate openly and kindly to each other. If there were mistakes made, people would get together as a team and solve it and work through it together. I guess the point in all of this was that it taught me that speaking up about mental health is really, really important. That's why in those first few months especially, I wrote so much about how my own mental health was suffering in that previous workplace and how it improved so much. If no one else talks about how mental health suffers, then there's going to be this culture and stigma towards mental health, which really isn't healthy. everyone in med school acknowledge that mental health exists, but not many people take actual steps to advocate for it or advocate for self-care or improved working conditions for junior doctors in general. So for me, that's really something I become very passionate about, especially after my own experiences with mental health and toxic work cultures. It taught me to really speak up for myself and advocate for myself, because if you don't speak up, no one knows that you're struggling. And surprisingly, there are a lot more people who are willing to help you once they know that you are struggling. But if you suffer in silence, no one ever will know.
I also think about how sometimes the public discussion over mental health and junior doctor well-being can be quite polarizing. Sometimes comments in the public forum say doctors should know what they're getting themselves into. This is how it used to be like.
I mean, the general public can't really comment fairly on the state of junior doctor treatment and welfare because they're not in the system. They're not the ones working 30 hours straight, having their weekends burned, having to cancel meetups with their friends, family, loved ones. They're not making those sacrifices, so it's very easy for them to look from the outside and be like, you know what you signed up for, you're getting paid so much. There's a lot of misconceptions that the public has. They think being a doctor is a lot more glamorous than it is. So I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there. But at least I'm pretty glad that MOH has recently rolled out some changes in policy. They've increased everyone's salary, started paying people for weekend rounds. It's a good step forward for sure. I think that there's definitely still more change that can be implemented. We don't need more money. We need more time. Time is something that can't be bought back. I feel like the hours in general, people are still pulling easily maybe 60, 70, 80 hours a week, having to work themselves to the bone. Can you imagine the toll that takes on your body? There's no amount of money that can undo that kind of damage because we don't know how it's affecting their health in the long run. There's some places that are trying to regulate their hours a little bit better. So there's a float system where people just work night shifts or day shifts for one whole week. I mean, that'll be a good step forward, but you know, they always state that the limitation is there's just not enough manpower. So unless that root problem can be solved, I don't really know if any major change will be effected again in the next few years. I mean, that's why I still keep writing about it on my blog, even though I'm no longer in the system, because I believe that as long as one of us or two of us makes enough noise, we can galvanize the rest to also maybe write in or just speak up more town hall meetings or when they're asked to give feedback to MOHH. Someone has to lead the charge, and I'd like to just be a small part of that in my own capacity.
For me, it also feels like you don't get to do the work that you are trained for. I'm actually quite curious to hear about what is it like on the other side, you know, as a locum.
So I've actually been loving life as a locum GP. I've been doing it for about 5 months so far, and it's absolutely what I feel like I was meant to do. I'm not saying that that's 100% the only thing I'm ever going to do in life, but I'm really enjoying work in the clinic setting. I knew from about my 3rd year in med school that I didn't really love ward-based or hospital-based work, that it was always going to be clinics for me. Because I enjoy the autonomy, being able to manage my patients independently. No one's trying to supervise me. I'm the one who's ordering everything for my patient based on my own clinical judgment. And I really, really enjoy the interpersonal connections that I can forge with my patients. It's just a short consult, but it feels a lot more personal than when you're doing a ward round. You just stare at the person from the foot of your bed with your whole team. You're viewing the person as an actual person in the clinic, and it feels a lot more rewarding. And for me, the learning curve wasn't really steep per se. It has been quite fun getting exposed to the bread and butter conditions in GP land, cough and cold and stomach flus. But there's so much more to it. You just get to talk to the patients. You find out what kind of work they're doing, a bit about their lives in maybe the short 5 minutes that you're with them. You can encourage self-care in patients. I give them nuggets of advice on how to prevent this kind of condition from recurring, how they can prevent back sprains or do some little physio for themselves. You don't have to change people's lives in a big way as a doctor. You don't have to save them from stage 4 cancer. You don't have to do surgery. You can just help them recover from a small flu, and it's still pretty fulfilling, honestly. Another major aspect that I love is the complete autonomy. No one's telling me to work a weekend. I'm the one in charge of my own schedule. So if I overwork myself, it's my own fault. If I underwork myself and don't have enough for that month, it's also my own fault. So like for example, I'm going on vacation soon for 2 weeks. It's something I couldn't have dreamt of if I had still been in the system. And having that much more wiggle room in my life has given me a lot of time to explore other areas. Now I can actually consider settling down, starting a family, which I couldn't if I had been in the system. I have time for my hobbies. I've recently picked up like 101 different hobbies. I've taught myself coding, going for sword fighting classes, learning how to produce music, I'm going to pick up other skills along the way. As long as I have the time and the energy and mental bandwidth which GP life affords me, I think I'm really excited for where my future's headed.
So, where is your future headed?
I mean, career-wise, as I said, it's never been about a career for me. It's just about finding sustainable and meaningful work where I can give back to the community and make use of my years of medical training. I'm not going to just abandon doctoring entirely, but it's also about having a life which is aligned with the values that I want and living a life focused on love and happiness. I mean, love and happiness sound like really fuzzy and fluffy ideals to base your life around, but to me, I feel like if I just actively seek out those in the day-to-day and make decisions based on what will bring me the most joy, let me spend the most quality time with my loved ones, then I think I'll be quite happy with where I'm at, even if I'm not ever achieving the heights that a lot of my peers will eventually achieve in medicine and outside of medicine.
I remember one of the things that I found very cute was whenever you go to different clinics and then you eat at different hawker centers, you form little friendships with all the fishball noodle uncle, and they remember your order every time you go there.
Yes. Another part of locum GP life I enjoy because you can travel to many different corners of Singapore. I mean, joy can be found in the smallest of things, and I get my cheap thrills from just going to a different hawker centre each time. Good food in the area, different clinic, different food every day. Now that I'm doing a few more regular locum slots at certain places every week, I form friendships with the clinic assistants, and I know those areas like the back of my hand. It's fun. I'm settling into some form of a routine even within my locum life. It's been enjoyable so far. I don't know where it'll lead me, whether I'll still be doing locuming in like a few years' time. I mean, the future's unknown, but that's what's exciting about life. There's always opportunity, and I feel like I got a lot of my life back once I left.
Since we started this conversation about your blog, what are your long-term goals for your blog, if you have any?
I'm definitely going to continue writing my monthly posts. I'll continue my Chasing Dreams series. I'll just continue sharing with you guys what my new wacky life plans are. I'm also really interested in psychology recently, so I'm actually going to start a new series on that. I'm still an armchair psychologist for now, but I might do some diplomas so that I have more credibility and can write about psychology, mental health advocacy, because those are things that I really feel passionate about and that I feel my current readers would benefit from. Eventually, in the long run, I might write a book sharing about my life and experiences and burnout caused by the system. Maybe a parenting book, pitfalls to avoid when raising your kid in a hyper-competitive system like Singapore, and especially in the schools that we went to make sure that other people don't go down the same path without carefully evaluating if that's what they want in life. Overall, I just want to continue advocating for self-care, self-love, mental health, because those are things that I feel would have been useful resources for me when I was going through these tough times. So I hope to write about them and share them with the world as well.
Anything else you want to share with our listeners?
One thing I'd like people to just remember is that you are so much more than your career. You are so much more than what society defines as success. You are enough. You don't have to push yourself just to make everyone else happy. You need to lead a life that you're happy with, and that's the most important.
Thank you so much, Faith.
Thanks for having me.